Alright, I will be talking about the help in regards to our readings this week from Maxwell and Shankman. Now, the first one is the law of timing, and it basically stated that the right action at the right time results in success. And I definitely think that Skeeter saw the perfect opportunity and had the law of timing because she saw the need for the help's perspective. Whether it was Hilly gaining momentum with the law about the toilets being outside for the help, and she definitely had, understanding of the situation. She had maturity. She was definitely confident, and I think the decisiveness came in. She made up her mind she wanted to do this, but then for in the maid's perspective, that took a while for them to gain decisiveness because so much was on the line for them if they went through with this book that Skeeter wanted them to help with. And experience she definitely had. You saw time and time again, Skeeter would stand up when she was with all of her friends, if that's what we want to call them. She constantly, talked back to them, which wasn't the norm, as you can tell by all their faces. And then I think Abeline saw that Skeeter was able to stand up for them, and I think that helped her gain a little bit of courage to be able to help write the book. And of course, all the other things that were happening that didn't seem fair, that she finally changed her mind to help. But I think the start of it was definitely seeing that Skeeter really did want to help them. And for intuition, I think they all saw that things were getting worse and it was time to do something. And for preparation, I feel in this aspect that, obviously preparing to write and, gaining all the steps to be able to talk to Abeline, but I also see that Skeeter started weakening Hilly with her, not putting the law in the newsletter or putting that they wanted to have, they put toilets in her yard. I just see that as definitely kind of preparing for it and strengthening, their purpose and weakening. The next law is the law of explosive growth, and this is basically, leaders who develop leaders want to be succeeded. They want them to carry on their legacy, which I'll talk about in the next law. And I feel like Skeeter definitely helped Abeline, become a leader, but also I believe Constantine was a factor that actually motivated Skeeter to do this. When she learned that, she was gone, that changed her whole view on it and definitely motivated her, internally. And then obviously Abeline, got to Minnie, and then they were able to talk about the book and become leaders. And then I think Minnie more so, because as soon as Minnie joined Abeline, then the rest of Maid started to. They realized they needed the help of everyone to succeed. Um, and I definitely believe that, in a way, Skeeter helped Abeline, but I feel like Abeline was more of a leader in a way because she had so much more to lose. She could lose her job, her way of life, and it just completely changed her outlook, and she actually stood up for herself. So Skeeter may have helped her, but I think Abeline was definitely she's the legacy that is carried on, and I'll talk about this in the next law. And this law, the law of legacy. A legacy is created only when a person puts his organization into the position to do great things without him. And the book started it all, but it was the legacy of the help. Skeeter, started it, but the maids and the help, carried it on. And you can even this is a perfect example when Skeeter created it so they could continue on without her. In the end, she wasn't going to leave New York because she thought they all needed her help here. But as you can see, they were able to continue on without her. And definitely Abeline at the end gets courage, and the legacy is definitely carried on. It's a clear example of it. All right, and on to emotionally intelligent leadership. Shanksman's reading. For conflict management, it's kind of self-explanatory. I believe the conflict started due to different values. You can clearly see, the whites thought they were better than the blacks, so that is how all this, started, all the conflicts. However, I believe the conflict was extremely important because it allowed the maids to speak up. It gave them courage that they needed to do so. If there weren't for conflict, then who knows if anything would have changed. It probably would eventually, but nowhere near, the timing that it did then. Because conflict is extremely important, to help people see the issue. And when people see the issue, then more people want to help fix the issue. So that was a great, momentum booster for all the other maids that ended up helping with Skeeter's book. And then for developing relationships, obviously you learn in any leadership class that you are stronger with relationships. And I definitely believe this. And you can tell with this film that nothing would have been accomplished without each other. Skeeter needed Aibileen needed Skeeter. All the help, all the maids, needed each other to rely on each other for support to do what they were doing because it was illegal and they could lose, their lives for it. Their jobs, wouldn't be able to get a job, so no pay, couldn't afford to live. So it was a huge risk that they all had to take, and they used each other to support each other and rely on each other. They also listened well to each other and understood how valuable they all were to each other. So pretty much what I just said. And then moving on to the teamwork was definitely evident. You can see that they were skeptical at first, but they learned to trust each other. And by learning to trust each other, they realized they all needed each other to make this change. And when you think about it, Skeeter couldn't have written this book because she wanted the host's perspective. So if she wrote it in her perspective, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't give the same meaning, the same controversy. And then all the maids needed, Skeeter to get their stories out there. It was their stories, but, Skeeter also put, her life on, on risk just to do this for them. So in the end, they were a team to accomplish this, momentum towards changing, the way that society was. And another thing, was definitely capitalizing on the difference. The book said it basically challenges us to break away from the norm, which can be extremely hard for people. And I feel like Aibileen definitely demonstrated this by working with Skeeter. One example in the film was that she said she never had a white person in her home. That means a lot because, it wasn't allowed. And you saw how she was, very skeptical, very, she was very, sketchy, to have Skeeter in her home because she was scared. And I also feel like it was kind of harder for Aibileen to deal with, capitalizing on difference because she usually was not allowed to do any of the things that Skeeter was asking her to do. But Skeeter was raised by Constantine and, she broke away from what was socially acceptable, but she was raised, by a person like Aibileen. They kind of had, I feel like they kind of had the same heart. So, Skeeter was more, norm to it than Aibileen was. So I do feel like it was harder for Aibileen to do this. And one of the main things that stuck out to me in the movie and it made me realize, all this together was that she said we raise their kids and those kids become our bosses. It was amazing to me that, those kids, are raised by them and then they become their bosses and treat them the same or even worse than their parents did. And it was very interesting to me to see that, Skeeter was able to break away from that and she saw the differences. So, that was like a big point for me and I was like, it made me really think about everything that was going on and about the entire movie. Other than that, I definitely enjoyed this film and I've been wanting to see it for a while, so I was glad it was at one of our assignments. But it definitely helped me understand a lot of these concepts in a real world perspective and I think Aibileen was a great leader. She came out to be a great leader in the end. She just needed her courage and she got that from Skeeter. Other than that, that's it.